Assalamu alaikum jami'an. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for attending. I know most of you actually attend before our webinar time, so I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. Thank you for all joining us from all over the world, several universities in several different countries, different nationalities, and different language. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for attending today's webinar. Also, I want to thank who is joining with us today in the YouTube. It's live. Thank you so much. So I know some of you, as always, it's our webinar on Thursday, but today we have a special topic with a special and well-known person or a doctor that he's joining us today, and this is not his first time with us. He is one of our ITAR family. Our keynote speaker is Professor Khalid Husseini. Is a professor of accounting at University of Portsmouth in the United Kingdom. He has over 2.5 decades of teaching and research experience at both undergrad and postgraduate levels. He has a growing research reputation in the field of accounting and finance. He is working in the demand of corporate narrative, reporting, corporate governance, earning management, international financial reporting, also IFRS and corporate investment efficiency, corporate finance, Islamic accounting and finance. He has published more than 142 articles in peer-reviewed journals and has written a number of book chapters and edits a textbook on corporate governance in emerging economics. He also won the Best Paper award from British Accounting Review in 2007 and the Journal of Risk Finance in 2012. He has supervised 48 PhD scholarship, and I am one of them, and has examined 106 PhD theses. He has received a research grant from the Economic and Social Research Council, the British Academy, and Qatar National Research Foundation, Plymouth University, and the University of Plymouth, beside Abu Dhabi University. He is a co-editor of the Journal of Financial Reporting and Accounting and Journal of Contemporary Issues in Accounting. He is associate editor of Journal of Applied Accounting Research and International Journal of Accounting, Auditing, and Performance Evaluation, and International Journal of Emerging Market. Thank you so much, Professor Khalid, joining us today and accepting my invitation. Before I give you the floor, Professor Khalid, he is my supervisor in my PhD. Thank you so much, Professor Khalid, for accepting my invitation. And you have like 1 hour for a presentation, and then we'll open the floor for any question. You have 2 questions to ask Professor Khalid. The first one, you can type your question in Q&A below the screen, or you can raise your hand and we'll go one by one for asking Dr. Khalid. Also, who is attending in live on YouTube, also you can write your question in the chat and I will read it to Professor Khalid. Who's here, please don't write your question in the chat because the chat is keep rolling, so I can't catch your question. So please write it in the Q&A or raise your hand so we can give you the chance to ask Professor Khalid. Thank you so much again for attending today. Thank you, Professor Khalid, and the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Ahmed, for inviting me for sharing my experience about reviewing process today. I will share my slide first, then I will start the session. Okay, so today I'm talking about a new topic which might interest most of the researchers, even young researcher in any field. Is not related to business, it's related to any field of expertise. So today I'm talking about the review process and how to be a reviewer and how can you review an article in academic journal. So more specifically, I will cover some points which is related to the topic today. So I will start by giving like an overview about the review process, how it looks like from the start until the end. Then I will talk about who can be the reviewer of a research article. In this way, I will try to answer your question about can I be a reviewer for an article for academic journal. So we need to know who are the reviewers and how editors choose reviewers for reviewing research articles before making decisions related to accepting or rejecting research papers. Also, I will answer one of the questions. It might be in your mind. Why should I review a research paper? What's the benefit I will get if I review the paper? Some people think about this issue because you are reviewing the paper, you recommend acceptance or rejection. So if acceptance, the author of this paper will get some benefit and he might be able to get his promotion. But what about you as a reviewer? Do you have any benefits or should you receive any benefits or what kind of benefits you are expecting as a reviewer? Also, I will refer to some literature when they mention about the main characteristics of a good reviewer and also the main responsibilities of a reviewer, what he should or she should do, what is her or his responsibility. And finally, I will give some tips about giving a complete review for a research article. So what kind of information you need to look at in order to be able to write your report successfully before sending this report to the journal. In terms of the review process, it started from the day you submit your paper to the journal. Once you submit the paper to the journal, the admin team in this journal makes some checks to be sure that you follow the author guidelines, the paper is within the scope of the journal, and so on. Then they send the paper to the editor. Editor will read the paper, and within 7 to 10 days, he will make a decision whether the paper should be rejected, and in this case, it's called disk rejection, or if the paper should be reviewed, so they will send the paper to reviewers. Normally, editors send the paper to 2, sometimes 3 reviewers, and give them time between 1 month in one journal up to 3 months in another journal. So the topic today will be about the reviewers themselves, but just I'm discussing the process. So the reviewer will receive the paper and evaluate this paper, write their review, and make a recommendation about the article, should the article be accepted or rejected or revised and resubmit. So if the editor sends the paper to 2 reviewers and the 2 reviewer accepts the paper will be accepted. If the 2 reviewer reject the paper will be rejected. But if they offer some revision or some advice for revision based on the type of this revision might be minor. So minor revision by both reviewer, so it will be invited for resubmission for minor revision, or it might be major revision, so they have major concern. So if it's minor correction or major revision, this means that they like the idea, they see the potential in your paper, but at the same time, they have some concern about the quality of your paper. In this case, they advise you to consider these comments to improve the quality of the paper. Some authors might decide to change their mind and decline the offer from the editor and search for another journal because the revision might take time and they are in a hurry to get this paper published, so they have the right to withdraw. But again, if they resubmit the paper, the editor will send the paper again to the reviewers to consult about their decision or recommendation about the paper. Should the paper be accepted or rejected? And based on the reviewer recommendation, again, the paper could be accepted or the paper could be rejected. So reviewer is very important layers in the reviewing process, and without reviewers, it will not be able to complete the whole reviewing process. So based on this graph, as you can see, the number of papers submitted was 38 papers. Only 8 papers accepted, which represent 21%, 25 papers rejected, which represent 65%, and 13% of these papers, 5 papers, withdraw. So again, the acceptance or rejection is mainly based on the recommendations of the reviewers. In this case, you can imagine how important are these people in the reviewing process. So if I am an editor, I need to be sure that the reviewer are expert in the area. So this is a minimum requirement. I should send the paper to someone who knows something about the area. He is aware or she is aware about the major developments in the area. In this case, he can give like a fair judgment or a fair comment about the quality of the paper under review. So this is a review process we need to understand now. So the main focus today will be on the reviewer action, their characteristics, their role, how can we choose them. So what happened exactly in this process? Once you submit the paper to the academic journal website, admin team, the editorial office, will check the paper against some of the criteria they have. First of all, they will try to see if your paper match the aim and the scope of the journal or not. If you, as an author, follow the instructions and guidelines given by the journal or not. If not, they might return the paper to you. They choose the decision of unsubmit the paper, ask you to follow the instructions and submit the paper again to the journal. Also, they check if there is any similarities. So most of the journals using Turnitin to find out if you copy this work from someone else without any citation. And also, they read carefully your cover letter. When they read the cover letter, they try to see if you recommend any reviewers or if you recommend not sending the paper to any reviewers. So you can recommend sending the paper to reviewers, or you can recommend not sending the paper to some reviewers. And in both cases, you need to identify what are the potential reasons for these people you suggest in your cover letter. So once the editorial team has done their task, they send their report to the editor or the senior or associate editor for the journal. So first of all, the editor here try to check all the reports, the whole report written by the editorial office. And also they try to make a decision about should the paper be sent to the reviewers or should the paper be desk rejected. And for the editors or the associate editors to make this decision to send the paper to reviewers or to desk reject the paper, they should answer some questions. First of all, they try to find out if the paper is interesting, provides novel issues, new ideas, new contributions or not. They try to find out if the paper provides any new theory, if the literature is critical, comprehensive, and up-to-date, if the method used is appropriate to achieve the research objective or not, whether the result is interesting, whether the result have some reflection on practice or not, Also, they try to see the style of writing. If the writing is clear, so the reviewers can easily understand your story. Is there any story in your paper? Is the story is new? Does it complement the research in the area? So they try to put their own criteria to find out if the paper provide sufficient contribution to the literature or not. If yes, they will send the paper to reviewers. If not, they will disk reject the paper, and the disk rejection decision will be taken up to 10 days in most of the journals. So you need to be sure that you answered these types of questions clearly in your paper before submitting the paper to a journal. So the question is, if they decide to send the paper to the reviewers, how can editors choose reviewers for papers? First of all, the general rule is choosing reviewers who are expert in the area. So we should match the expertise of the reviewer with the scope of the paper to be sure that the reviewer will provide a fair evaluation of the paper. So what they do, they can do many things in order to identify the reviewers for the paper. First of all, during submission, some journals give the authors a chance to identify the potential reviewers. So you will find potential reviewers. You need to suggest few names. You write their names, their email address, and more importantly, you need to identify the reasons for choosing these reviewers. And the editor has the right to choose this reviewer or not. He has a final decision to choose them or not. But this one way for the journal to get names of potential reviewers. So they might ask the author to suggest some potential reviewers. Sometimes they check the reference list of your paper and to choose the authors of relevant articles. For example, if you mention in your paper that you are following Hosseini et al. In your research method, in this case, you will find the editor will send your paper to Hosseini to be sure that, because Hosseini is expert in the area, secondly, because you cite Hosseini work in your paper, thirdly, because he will look at the profile of Hosseini and he will see he's like active researcher. So he will believe that active researcher will give like an honest and a clear and fair review on your paper. So reference list is one way to get the reviewers. Another way, if I receive any article, let's say I receive article about activity-based costing in Nigeria. So I'm not sure who is expert in this area. If I'm not sure, just simply if I search Google Scholar about activity-based costing in Nigeria or in developing countries, I can find out potential reviewers by looking at different papers in Google Scholar and see this paper, how this paper is close to the paper under review, and I can choose these reviewers for the paper. Also, for all journals, they have editorial advisory boards. So I can choose reviewers from one of these editorial advisory boards. Also, one way to get the reviewer quickly, if I looked at authors of similar paper in the same journals. So normally, when you submit the paper to a journal, you will check if there is any paper in the same area in the journal, and you will cite these papers in your paper. So in this case, as an editor, I will check if you cite any paper from the journal or not, and if yes, I can nominate the author of the article cited in your paper as a reviewer for your paper. Also, the editor can select any guest editor for any special issue related to your topic as a reviewer for your paper. Sometimes the editor sends the reviewer to send your paper to one of the reviewer, but the reviewer is busy and the reviewer declines the invitation. So most of the journal give this option to the potential reviewer. For example, if the journal send me a paper to review and I'm very busy, I can decline this invitation. But at the same time, the journal give me the option. If I decline the invitation, I can suggest someone else to review the paper. So ask a reviewer who decline for any suggestion. Also, if you review one paper one time in a journal, your name will be recorded on the reviewing process system. So if someone submit a paper on earnings management, and if I search in the system about earnings management, I can find out any previous reviewer who reviewed papers on earnings management before, or even any author whose research interest is related to earnings management. So again, using previous reviewers, also one way to choose the reviewers. Use the current author. This like people who send their paper under review at the same time, who are expert in the area of interest of other journals, other articles submitted as well, can be used as a reviewer. And finally, I can ask for new reviewers. So some editors, based on their experience, they can identify new reviewers to the field. And even some journals, you will find in their website, they have a call for reviewers. If you believe that you are qualified to be a reviewer, just submit an application to the journal, and if they look at your CV, they will, if you convince them based on the information in your CV that you are you can review the article in their journals, you are expert in the field, they can give you the chance to review these articles. Also, the editor and the associate editors can identify new reviewers based on their network. For example, I'm a reviewer of a journal. If I know that some of my colleagues are good in research, they have the ability to review and to write a critical review report, I can invite them to join the journal as reviewers. So the question might be now, if I review the paper for a journal, what are the main benefits I can get from this reviewing process? The main benefit, to the best of my knowledge, is many benefits. First of all, you are building a good research profile in your CV. So in your CV, you write that you are ad hoc reviewer in Journal X, and you reviewed, let's say, 2 or 3 articles a year. This gives a good indication about you as a good researcher. You are recognized in the field, and this will give you a chance in the future to be a guest editor if you need to apply for a guest editor position in any journal, or you can run any special issue. And also you might receive some conference invitation or invitation to have a special issue, or even invitation to be one member in the board of directors or the advisory board on the journal. If you thought about applying to be associate editor or editor in the future, the first question will be asked is about your expert in the reviewing process. So if you convince them in your CV, you mentioned that I am reviewer for a number of journals. I did, let's say, 5 reviews in a year, and at the same time, you applied for a guest editorial special issue. This will raise the chance to get the associate editor position in any journal, or even an editor in any journal. Number 3, when you apply for promotion from assistant professor to associate, or from associate to a professor, showing that you are an active reviewer in international journals also is a credit for you. It increases your chance to get the promotion, because it indicates that you are an expert in your field. Because journals will not contact you to review articles unless you show an evidence that you are expert or you are well recognized person in the field. Also, another point I can raise, and this I feel when I review any article, you keep your knowledge up to date. So you will know all new lines of research in your area of interest. So you expand your knowledge by most of up-to-date literature when you review the article. And also, you will learn the critical thinking when you review the article, especially most of the journals send the paper to 2 reviewers or 3. Once the editor make a decision, they send this decision to the 3 reviewers. So you will know if you think carefully about the paper, if your recommendation is fair or not. So when you compare your review with others, you might find you have the same comments, which is perfect. You might find that you are too harsh compared with them, or you might find that you are too easy compared with them. But from reading other review comments, you might learn more about how to criticize the idea of the research. So you shouldn't accept any complicated research. You shouldn't accept any new idea, but you need to think, and you should have a critical thinking for these new ideas. Also, it helps you when you submit your own paper for publication. Because if you reviewed a number of articles for a specific journal, and if you write like a fair review comment and a fair report, this gives a good impression about your research to the editor and the associate editor as well. So this might facilitate the review process for your own manuscript for publication. Also, I mentioned here to public service because I think this is one of our role in the academia. So our role in the academia is teaching. So we teach in universities, research, we are searching and we produce research paper. And also we should provide evidence of public service in our CV. And public service here includes the reviewing process because we help researchers to improve the quality of their paper. Specifically, we help the early career researcher when they submit the paper. So your comments should improve the quality of the paper. So you are helping the researcher, you are helping the journal, and also you are helping the reader of the journal. The last, or the point before last, generally speaking, most of the journals don't pay fees for the reviewers, but in very few cases, some journals pay $50 or $100 and $150, but very few cases. But again, this might be considered as a benefit if this might encourage you to review the paper. Some journals provide some incentives for reviewing the paper. Finally, the last benefit is the free access, and this most of Emerald journals. When you review an article for Emerald, they give you 30 days free access to the publisher database to download articles. So these are the main, the key benefits you might get as a reviewer. To summarize in just one sentence, increasing your knowledge and sharing this knowledge with other researchers, I think this will be the key benefit for being a reviewer, and this enhance your CV and also enhance the reputation of you as a researcher. It helps you in promotion, and even if you think of applying for any fund in the future, in your CV, you can mention that I am ad hoc reviewer for journals XYZ. I reviewed many articles. My aim is to improve the quality of the papers in these articles. This again indicates that you are a good researcher in your field. Okay, so many other characteristics of the good researchers, and based on what I discussed now, you can guess with me who should be considered as a good researcher. So a good researcher should be someone who published original articles himself or herself. So we can think about a reviewer as a good reviewer who has no publication before. Okay, but at the same time, what should we do? Should you wait until you get published paper in top quality journals and then to be a reviewer? I will say no. Sometimes you might get a chance before you get your paper published, and you will have one chance in your life. If this chance is successful, I think you will get more chances after that. For example, if I trust you as one of my, let's say, PhD students, I believe that you are good enough to review one of the articles. So if I send you this paper, asking you to give me a fair review and evaluation of the paper, and to recommend if the paper should be accepted or rejected or invited for submission. If you reply to me, yes, there is a contribution, yes, there is good literature, yes, 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 accept, I will not trust you. If you don't give me a good evaluation of the scientific content of the paper, in this case, I would say it's too early for you to be a reviewer. So as a reviewer, you need to provide a detailed report to discuss the strengths of the paper and also the weaknesses of the paper, and you need to provide a justified recommendation whether I should accept or reject or invite the paper for recommendation. So publication is important, but not necessary in most of the cases. The second point here, you should have knowledge and expertise in the area. So my area of research is disclosure. If you are doing your PhD in disclosure, yes, I might send you one of the paper to review. So I should be sure that there is evidence of knowledge in the area, because if you are doing your PhD and let's say you are in the second or third year, at least you are aware about the current literature, and I know your ability to criticize the literature. So based on the material I have, I can decide whether you are a good reviewer or not. Also, if you have experts in reviewing other articles, this will be fine. If you are able to provide constructive, objective, fair review, honest, polite review, this will be perfect. Also, if you have time to review the paper, so normally good reviewer reply on time. Reply on time means that once you get the invitation from the reviewer, please accept if you have time or reject if you don't have time. But not replying at all to the reviewer give a very bad impression about you as a reviewer. The reviewing process is free of charge in most cases, so don't expect to get any rewards or return from your work. It's volunteer work, and in this case, you need to prepare yourself to do something for the community, the scientific community, the society, without get paid. So academic reviewer also should come from academic institution. So you should have like evidence that you have email at your academic institutions, or your academic institutions is has good publication reputation. Also, you should have good knowledge of the language. If the paper is written in English, you should have good knowledge of English language and grammar. Also, you could have evidence that you can make a good balance between quality control and encouragement of innovation. What does it mean? It means that you need to be sure that if the paper contains a novel idea, we should encourage the authors to invest more time and efforts to improve this idea and get this idea published. But at the same time, quality control is important. Don't be shy. If you have concerns or comments about the quality of the paper, even the quality of writing the paper, please share this comment with the authors and the editor in order to improve the quality of the paper. So these are the main characteristics of like a good reviewer. Also, we need to talk about the main responsibility. So what are the main responsibility of the reviewer? Very simple. We can say that once you get the invitation from the journal, you need the first responsibility is to make a decision whether to accept the invitation or to reject the invitation. And the acceptance and rejection of the invitation will be mainly based on two factors. The first factor, your area of interest. If the paper is within your area of interest, please accept, subject to the second factor. If the paper is not within the area of your interest, just reject the invitation. What is the second factor? Is the time. If you have time to do the review, please do. If not, simply say, sorry, I am busy with other commitment at the current time, and I am unable to help in this occasion. If you need to be very kind, when you reject, try to suggest someone else. So try to suggest another colleague who is expert in the area. In this case, you're still providing your public service to the scientific community. As a reviewer, you are responsible for making everything confidential. So if you accept to review an article, don't share the content of this article with any other colleague or any other authors. Second point, if you accept, you should note the deadline for submitting your review. And in this case, please don't delay the submission. Don't make the editor and the reviewers wait for a long time to get your comments. So you need to keep the deadline in mind. And for any reason you are unable to complete the review on time, please request extension from the editor, and he can extend the deadline for another few weeks for you. Number 3, if you have any conflict of interest, try to avoid reviewing the articles. So sometimes, if, let's say, I examine one PhD student, and I believe the PhD was very weak, and I give him like major comments in his PhD. And this PhD student submit a paper from his PhD to a journal. So I know who is he. I have an impression about the quality of his work. So if there is like this kind of conflict of interest, it will be better to say, I'm sorry, I can't review this paper because of the conflict of interest. Also, don't take the ideas of other authors in your research. So it is not ethical to take ideas of other authors in your research. So if someone if I got a paper to review and I found very interesting idea, it is not fair for the other authors to reject their paper and to take this idea and work and publish this idea myself. So I shouldn't use the idea until this work is getting published, or if this work is available anywhere in any public domain, I should cite these people as their original idea, and then I can explain how can I provide incremental contribution above what they have done in this area. So you will find here many other points. Give adequate time for reviewing the manuscript and read relevant literature. Sometimes the author refers to the literature you are not aware about. So don't do it in rush. To write a good review, what you need to do, first of all, you need to read the paper. Sometimes the author refers to some methods or some theories you are not aware about, and they write the reference. So you need to read the relevant literature in order to understand the novel contribution of the authors. After that, if you read and you feel that the paper is good, you need to write a good review report. And if you have any comments, you can share the comments of your on the paper with the editor and the authors. So don't accept any review request outside your expertise. Try to use language which encourage the authors to consider your comments, like, I like the idea of looking at the relationship between Y and X. It's an interesting idea. However, I have some comments or some concerns, but try to use some encourage language to encourage them to work hard to consider your comments. You shouldn't correspond with any authors directly. So once you write your review, you send the review directly to the editor. So don't try to search for the author or who are they, or waste your time, because this doesn't help you at all. Shouldn't give a recommendation regarding rejection, revision, or acceptance only if asked to do by the editor. So normally the editors will ask you for evaluation. Some journals have the option to choose also the recommendation. So what should you recommend for this article? So you can recommend acceptance or rejection or some revision, but don't do it unless they asked you to do it. Should not pass the manuscript to any junior or colleagues for helping. So if the editor trusts you to review the article, don't forward this article to someone else to help you in the review, especially if you are busy. If you are busy, decline the invitation and suggest your colleague to do the revision, to do the review. So many other comments which considered as the main responsibility of the reviewers. So don't accept a review request on topic outside your expertise. We mentioned this one. Should contact and inform the editor immediately if scientific fraud or misconduct or plagiarism is suspected. So sometimes I receive the paper to review. I use Turnitin to check similarity, and I found the similarity is 40% or more. In this case, I don't want to waste my time to read the whole paper and to make a decision. What should I do? I contact the editor saying that I'm sorry, I can't, or I'm unable to read the paper because I found that there is a kind of high level of similarity with other papers. So I think the author should reduce the similarity ratio to 20% before getting this paper reviewed. Also, they strongly suggest that you shouldn't retain this manuscript for any personal use. You should destroy the paper or the electronic version from your computer after you complete your review. So your task is to review the paper, not to get any benefit from this paper under review. Also, you shouldn't be biased to the content of the review. If you like the idea, if you are against the idea of the authors, try simply and scientifically explain why you dislike their idea. And also you can mention your idea, but don't reject the paper because you have your own personal view on this kind of topic. For example, if you are a qualitative researcher and the reviewer is quantitative researcher, there is not good match between the two groups, qualitative and quantitative. In this case, don't reject the paper. You can decline the invitation to review the paper, but don't reject the paper because the authors used different methodology that you are not interested in. The last point, you should treat all manuscript in a way you would like your manuscript to be treated. So when you submit your paper to a journal, you are hoping that to get the reply from the editor as soon as possible. So in the same way, when you receive invitation to review the paper, please try to do it as soon as possible, in the same way as you are expecting the journal will reply to you as soon as possible. If you receive invitation to review any article and you have time and the expertise, please accept the invitation. In the same way as you send your paper for review and you are hoping that the editor will find the reviewer easily. Finally, and this final and the most important comment, don't give any generic feedback. Generic feedback means that I don't like the objective of the paper. The contribution is not clear. The methodology doesn't sound good. So this kind of generic feedback will not help the author to improve the quality. So you can say, for example, the quality of writing is very poor. Give the author some examples of the sentence in which you believe that the quality of article of writing is poor. Don't say that I'm not satisfied with the methodology. Please explain which part in the methodology you don't like or you don't satisfy or you have some concern. So giving detailed comments will help the author to improve the quality of their paper, even if you recommend rejection and the paper is rejected. So rejection is not a problem, but if you reject the paper or you recommend some major revision, try to help the author to get your points and to improve the quality of their paper. Okay, so as a reviewer, what should you do as main points to write your report? First of all, you accept the review. So I assume two things. You have the time and the expertise to do this review. Okay, so first of all, you need to read the paper. Need to read the paper and to be sure that the paper is relevant for the reader of the journal. You need to be sure that there is a research problem the researchers try to solve. There is a clear research question. They are trying to get an answer for this question. The research objectives are clearly stated in the paper. Also, there is a clear motivation why they examine this research issue, why they focus on this specific country or countries, why they are looking at a specific industry sector. So all these whys is related to the motivation of the research. Also, you need to check carefully if the author provide any contribution or not. And the contribution should be clearly stated in the paper. So without a contribution, you will not be able to recommend an acceptance or a revision. So you should be sure that the contribution is there. So the contribution could be contribution to knowledge. So they will say, for example, we are the first to consider this research issue in this specific country, but in the motivation, they have to explain why they choose this topic for this particular country. The contribution might be to the theory, so they try to use a new theory in the field of our study. Or they try to provide a new methodology, or they try to solve a problem in practice. So you need to understand what the contribution of the paper is and to what extent the authors clearly state this contribution. So sometimes when you read the paper, you strongly believe that there is a contribution, there is something new based on your expertise. But at the same time, the authors didn't write clearly what the contribution is. In this case, you invite the authors to revise the paper to highlight the incremental contribution above what has been done in the literature. But if the author writes the contribution in 1 or 2 paragraphs, and you strongly believe that there is no contribution at all in this paper, and what the author said is not new, you need to say the paper will be rejected, there is no contribution, and you need to write in details why you believe that there is no contribution. If you believe that this work has been done before in another paper, you need to provide a reference to the paper that has done this work before. So also you need to find out how the author develop their research hypothesis and how they formulate their research questions. And you need to be sure that this research hypothesis or research questions is developed using the literature and the theories mentioned before. And these research hypotheses and research questions match the research problem and the research objectives. You need, as a reviewer, also to be sure that the research method used is appropriate and relevant for answering the research questions, relevant for achieving the research objectives. And also, you need to be sure that the paper has some impact on practice. And finally, the paper is clearly written so readers will be able to understand the paper. So when you find any gap in this point in your detailed report, you need to explain these gaps. So for any paper, you start by title. Ask yourself, does the title reflect the content and the contribution of the paper? Yes or no? If it's yes, that's fine. If no, try to provide a sentence or two explaining that the title doesn't reflect the main contribution of the paper. If you can suggest a new title, suggest please. If not, you can give some keywords that you believe that these keywords will help to write a good title. Then you look at the abstract. You need to check if the abstract contains the objective, the methodology, the main findings. Is it enough? Does the author follow the structure or the instructions to the authors recommended by the reviewer? If yes, that's fine. If not, you need to provide some information to help the author to revise their paper. In terms of the introduction, be sure that the introduction contains information about a brief background about the topic, the main objective of the research questions, the motivation is clear, research importance, contribution, key findings, and the structure of the paper. For the literature review, you need to be sure that the author not just describe the literature, don't list the literature paper by paper. The author critically review the literature, so provide critical literature review, and the literature is relevant to the main research objective, relevant also to the field of the study. The literature is comprehensive, covers all relevant studies, and also the literature is up to date. Up to date means that cover all recent study. After the literature review, be sure that the author clearly identify what are the gaps in the literature, and then he should or can mention to how his paper fill at least one of these gaps. Once we identify the gaps, we need to think about the research hypothesis and how can we use a specific theory to build our research hypothesis. The most important part in any paper is the research method. We need to be sure that the author justifies the context, justifies the sample selection criteria, sample period is justified. He should justify also why he used a specific method rather than other methods. How did he collect the data for the analysis? What are the variable definition? How did they measure these variables and what the source of the data? This is the most important section. Based on the research methods, the paper is rejected or accepted. So we should be sure that the main findings are valid and the validity of the finding came from the research method. If the author uses the correct and the appropriate research method, this will increase the chance for the paper to get at least a chance to be revised and resubmit. Then the empirical analysis. So as a reviewer, you will check the narrative in this section with the tables. For example, the author say that they found a positive and significant relationship between two variables in their narrative. So you need to look at the table to see if actually the relationship is positive and significant as mentioned or not. So you need to double check the tables and the narrative in the empirical analysis section. Then you need to be sure that the author link their findings with the theory and the empirical literature. So the author discuss these findings rather than describing the finding. And finally, the conclusion. So you need to find out if the author summarized the main findings, discuss the implications of the finding, and also research limitation and suggestion for future research. Finally, you need to look at the references to see if the author cite relevant articles from the same journal or not, if the references cited in the article is of high quality or low quality, if the author cite all articles used in the paper or not, or if there is any references appears in the reference list and also is not included in the body of the paper. So answering these questions or looking at this point will help you to write a very comprehensive review report. There is no specific length for the review report, so it might be 1 page, 2 page, 3 page. So based on what types of comments you have and what types of concerns you have. So some reviewers start the review report by writing the main purpose of this paper is to examine the relationship between X and Y. I found this paper is very interesting, have a potential to contribute to the literature. However, I have some comments related to the literature review. So they will write 1 paragraph about literature review. The research method, you will find few paragraphs about research method and the main conclusion. So in your report, you can be more specific about the concern you might have. Also, you might classify this concern as major concerns or minor concerns. Minor concerns like the writing style. So you can give some examples of bad writing style or wrong sentence and ask the author to proofread the whole paper again. Sometimes you'll find tables without title. So this is very minor point. You can say table should have a title and should have a number as well. So you can classify your comments into major comments and minor comments. So to end this session, if you accept, and to summarize, if you accept a paper to review, only accept papers related to your field of study. And if you accept the paper, try to write your comments for the paper or review when you are in a good mood. Read the paper first, think about it. If you find that difficult to understand any specific point raised by the author, try to look at the literature related to this point. Try to write your review in time. So think about also the deadline. And if you are unable to meet the deadline, ask for extension. Try to use a very simple and clear language in writing your review. So to avoid any misunderstanding by the author of this article. In your review, try to provide detailed information to help the author to improve the quality of their paper during the revision. And even if the paper is rejected, try to provide specific and detailed information about the reason of rejection. When you write a review, try to be open-minded to any new research idea or any creative idea by the author. Don't be harsh, don't be tough in writing the comments. If you have scientific comments, scientific concerns, write the scientific concerns with some comments to help the author to improve the quality of the paper. There is no need to be harsh or tough when writing the comment. Be kind, be helpful. Also, you need to check the citation of the references to be sure that the author used references from the same journal if relevant, and the references came from high quality journals. When you make a decision, this is the last point I will mention today. When you make a decision, you need to be sure that there is a good match between your feedback and the decision. So for example, don't write very positive feedback at the end, your recommendation is rejection. Or don't write very negative feedback and by the end you give acceptance decision. So there should be a good match between the feedback and the recommendation or the decision by the reviewer. If you are unable to do, sometimes I found some reviewers say, I am between major revision and rejection, and this is my reason. Or some say I'm between minor and major. I'm not sure if my comments make sense or not. I'm not sure if these comments is minor or major. So leave it to the editor to decide. So the reviewer is not making a decision. The reviewer making a recommendation for the editor to help him to make a decision. So I think I finished on time. It's exactly 1 hour. Thank you very much, Dr. Ahmed, for inviting me, and I'm happy to answer all your questions.
Thank you so much, Professor Khalid. I know always actually you like the open questions, so anyone can ask Dr. Khalid. Actually, he asked me, Ahmed, 3 hours. I said, Doctor, هذا اللي عودتنا عليه أنت بعد.
I'm ready إن شاء الله.
إذا أنت طيب حنطمع بطيبك يا دكتور. الله يسلمك. Thank you so much, guys, and thank you, Professor Khalid, for the informative and very useful presentation, and thank you for accepting actually the topic that I asked you for it. Thank you so much. Doctor, before we start for any of your question in YouTube or in Zoom, Doctor, can you talk to us, please, about the similarity? Because some actually some reviewers, they didn't check the similarity before, review the paper. So is the similarity, checking the similarity, the job for the editor or associate editor or for the reviewer? Also, I want to thank you to tell all the audience, because they need to know, auditor and the associate editor, beside the reviewers, all of them, they are volunteering, they are doing the volunteering work, they are teaching, they are doing research, they are doing other stuff, their personal life, beside the review articles. So thank you so much for telling us this. Thank you so much. The floor is yours, Doctor.
Okay, first of all, the similarity issue should be the responsibility of the admin team of the journal. So once you submit, the admin team should check the similarity and provide some like indication if the paper have high similarity or low similarity. But not all journals make this similarity report. So I will say that if the editor or the associate editor believes that this work has been done before, he can check for similarity. Also, if the reviewer believes that this work has been done before, or if the reviewer needs to save his time or her time, he can check similarity first, and if there is any concern, he should share this concern with the auditor.
So me as a reviewer, Professor Khalid, if I receive a review, so is it my job to check the similarity, or I just assume that it's checked already?
It is not your job to check the similarity. You can assume it's checked already to save your time. Okay. But again, I personally believe to check first to save my time. So
as an editor? No,
as a reviewer. As an editor, I receive about 50 submissions every day. So I receive a high number of papers. I can't check similarity for all of them. But I disreject some paper if I believe this work has been done before. But as a reviewer, when I get a paper, to save my time, I put it in Turnitin. If the similarity is very high, I just simply reply to the editor, I can't consider this for review because of the similarity, it's high similarity.
Doctor, there is a question in YouTube. They ask regarding the similarity. What is the percentage of the similarity to disrejected? And also, which program or software that you used, or usually the most of the journals used or editors?
I think if the percentage is 20% or above 20%, it's considered very high. So the paper might be rejected. Each journal can use whatever the software for similarity. Personally, I use Turnitin where I check similarity, but I'm not sure about any. So any publisher can use any software they prefer to use.
Also, there is another question. Thank you, Doctor. Also, there is another question. There is some doctors, they already finished their PhD and master, and they already, they want to publish from their dissertation or from PhD. And as you know, Many universities, they publish their the thesis or dissertation in their library, or for example in UK in thesis. So when we check this paper, it might go to high similarity. So what should I do? For example, you give the author this rejection, but this work is
yes, if your paper is published, sorry, if your PhD is available online on public domain, and if you submit paper to journal, the similarity will be 100%. So the editor will understand this paper is submitted in University X for a master degree or for a PhD. So what I suggest authors here to write in a footnote that this paper is a chapter of my PhD submitted to University of Portsmouth in this year. So if you write a footnote and if you inform the editor in advance, this work is from your master degree or from your PhD, I think in this case, even if the similarity is 100%, this will not be rejected.
Also, I think Professor mentioned which authors of this paper is this thesis for.
Yes, the thesis doesn't. If the paper, if your thesis is available online, and Turnitin gave similarity of 100%, we can check who is the author. If the same author, it will be clearly and understandable that the author tried to publish his work, and this is acceptable.
Thank you so much. Please, again, guys, if you don't mind, don't type your question in the chat. The chat is keep rolling. I can't catch all of your question. If you don't mind, please write your question in Q&A or raise your hand. Thank you so much. Mansour? If you don't mind, unmute your mic so we can hear you, Mansour. Mansour, may you unmute your mic, please? Abbas? Abbas Hussein, if you don't mind, unmute your mic. في علامة المايك بس اضغط عليها على أساس تقدر نسمعك. We can't hear you. All right. Sabah? Sabah? Again, who's raising hand, please unmute your mic if I called your name, please, to save time. Unmute your mic, Sabah, if you don't mind. So we can't hear you. We can't hear you now. Abbas? Okay, Amani? Amani Ismail? Yes, Amani. Now we can hear you. Go ahead, please. Amani, you open the mic, then you mute it again. Amani. Yes, now we can hear you. Alaykum assalam.
أماني أماني من مصر. السلام عليكم.
وعليكم السلام. الصوت ضعيف شوية يا أستاذة أمان.
من
أماني صوتك بيقطع، مش سامعينك كويس. إذا عندك مشكلة في الإنترنت اكتبي سؤالك في الكيو اند اي واي ويل اسك دكتور خالد إن شاء الله. أيوة دلوقتي كويس، تفضل. عليكم السلام. All right, Amani, please, if you don't mind, write your question in Q&A and I will deliver it to Dr. Khalid. Thank you. Asrawi?
Hello, Dr. Ahmed. Hello, Dr. Khalid.
Hello,
Yes.
Dr. Asrawi.
Do you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for this interesting webinar. I'm Asrawi Abdul Ghani from Morocco. I'm an engineer in statistics and demography. Thank you very much for this interesting conference. My question, I have just two questions. I'm a student, I'm a doctoral student. I have two questions. The first, please, Dr. Khalid, how many pages should have a paper in average?
Okay.
My second question is, the appendix must be included or not in a paper, in a scientific paper? If yes, it must be in the beginning or in the end. So those are my questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Asrawi, for your question. First of all, how many pages? There is no benchmark. So there is no benchmark for the number of pages for the article. But in some journals, they limit the researcher by the number of words. So in some journals saying that the number of words should not be more than 10,000 words or 20,000 words. Some journals refer to the number of pages. It should not be more than 25 or 40, but this based on the field of your study, and also it mainly based on the journal style itself. For the appendix, yes, if the appendix is relevant to the main issues discussed in your research method. But if the appendix discusses additional analysis, this again will be mainly based on the editor. He might ask you to review it or to add it. If you add the appendix, it should be at the end of the paper.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Guys, if you want to raise your hand, you can ask Dr. Khalid Arabic or English. That's fine. All right, if you want, that's fine in the Q&A. Also, Dr. Khalid, we have, I try to mix from YouTube and Zoom. Doctor, there is a question from Rania El-Bakatoushi. She asked, does the editor have the right to make a decision instead of the reviewer? And does not return the paper to the reviewer?
Yes, the editor have a right to make a decision. So if the reviewer recommend, let's say, some revision, the editor will send you the paper to revise the paper. And once you revise and submit it back, the editor has the authority to make the decision directly without sending the paper back to the editor. Yes.
Thank you. Rana Al-Bahrani.
Yes. Hello.
Hello.
Hello, Dr. Ahmed. First of all, I just want to thank Dr. Ahmed Al-Qassam for coordinating such a lecture, and a big thank you for Professor Khalid Al-Husseini for presenting such an essential topic, especially for researchers. Actually, I have two questions. The first question is that sometimes some journals give the right to the researchers to select their reviewers. Is that usually the selection from a specific, let's say, list offered by the journal itself, or from the persons that or the reviewers or experts in the field that he knows?
Okay, this is the first question. What's the second one?
Yeah, the second one is there any do you recommend to follow or you have a standard sample of reviewing form so that we can depend on, not necessarily exactly the same, but we can just make sure of the points mentioned in that form. And thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. Of course, if the journal asks the author to recommend some reviewers, it's better to choose the reviewers from the expert in the fields. And the best way to choose the expert in the field is to look at your list of references at the end of the paper to see which experts you have cited their work in your paper. And these experts in the field cited in your paper will be the good reviewers for your paper. And if you write when you submit that these papers are expert in the field, I cite their work in my paper, I'm sure that the editor will send this paper to these reviewers. Your second question or second point about template for review. I don't have template for review. I can share with you one of my review after deleting some information to see what information the reviewer can write in their report and before sending to the journal. I can share this one with you, of course. Send me email and I can share it with you.
Thank you very much. Inshallah, thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Khalid, thank you so much, Rana. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Thank you. And thank you, Dr. Khalid. Also, there is a question. Actually, I really like the question because I really, it was very useful in my PhD, Dr. Khalid, which is, who asked it? I read it somewhere on YouTube, but I forget who. Daher. Can I submit my dissertation for review? So now Daher, he asked Dr. about the whole dissertation, or maybe for a chapter of our the thesis. So the question, if there is an opportunity or somehow to send someone to review the chapter or the whole thesis, if there is.
Okay, from your whole thesis, you have three opportunities. The first opportunity is to publish chapters from your thesis in article. So you convert your thesis in 2 or 3 articles. So this will be considered as research articles published in top ranked journals or good ranked journals. Second opportunity is to publish the abstract of your thesis in a good journal. So some journals accept to publish your abstract only in the journal. The third option, you can publish the whole thesis, master or PhD, as a book. So some publisher might able to help you to publish the whole thesis as a book. And this option also is okay, acceptable. So you send them the whole thesis, they will send it to the reviewer to check the whole work, and then the paper or the whole thesis will be published, but in this case as a textbook, not as an article.
So Daher, as Professor Khalid said, Dr. Khalid talked about publication, but if you send it to this journal or this publisher, either it's book or journal, their job to check your paper, so they can give you the opportunity, which is review the chapter or the whole book. But Dr. Khalid, I think if someone publish the whole book, they can't publish again in a journal. That's it. So everything is done here.
Yes. So my sincere advice is to try to publish research articles for your thesis in top ranked journals rather than publishing the whole thesis as a textbook.
Also, Dr. Khalid, if you don't mind, I want to add something. There is association, guys, like for example in accounting, I don't know if other majors, in European Accounting Association, one of the biggest association in the world, EAA. Dr. Khalid, during my work in thesis, EAA, it's an association, جمعية محاسبة في أوروبا. Of course, if anyone, any student, they give them a lower payment, which is the fees, than the doctors. Also, they give them a feature or an option to send them a chapter or a proposal, and they can check it. Okay, and that's what I did actually. They check my whole proposal and they give me very, very, very good review. Yes, they are harsh. Yes, they are right. I don't know, maybe 6 or 7 pages, but it's very good and very good point, and it's really will improve your proposal or your chapter. So what I meant, you can take an opportunity in this association to review your work. Also, you can make it as a presentation. Present your work in conferences and workshops. That's also, it will, you know, you will review your chapter or your book, your idea, your aim, whatever. Yes, it's not published, but it's in the process. They will check it. They will give you their feedback. Plus, many conferences nowadays, they will put someone called المناقش دكتور, what's called the discussion, not discussioner, the discussant. So the discussion, he will, before, when you present already, he will come and after you, and he already read all your paper, review it in very harsh, or maybe, you know, in whole details, whole information, and will give you all the details. Dr. Ahmed, so now we are in COVID-19, how we will go to the conference? It's now less price, and most of them are free, virtual. So they take this opportunity. Ali Al-Sawar. Ali, unmute your mic, please. After Ali, Francis. Yes, Ali. Yes, Ali. Your mic is open, but we can't hear you. Can you talk? So we can hear you. Francis?
Yeah, thank you. Can you hear me, Doc?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, yeah. Thank you, Prof. I always enjoy listening to you. Please, I'm a PhD student in Malaysia. The issue of the work, your work should not be about what somebody has already done. Therefore, it should be there should be novelty in that. At times, it becomes a little bit of a problem for some of us. For example, I've been doing a work in corporate sustainability reporting. Just want to look at its effects on the firm performance. And as I've gone through the literature, I saw that most of the articles use return on assets, return on equity, and their Tobin skill by way of firm performance measurement. So then I'm faced there, okay, if I should do my work differently from others, then what measurement different from all these that they've used should I use? And if you use something there that nobody has used, then the question becomes, oh, but who has used it before? So it becomes a little bit of a difficult for us. So if you can please explain a little bit on that for me.
Okay, thank you very much for this interesting question. So the question is related to the novel contribution. So if your topic is about CSR and performance, what is new in this area? So if you look at the literature, you will find people look at market performance like Tobin Q and accounting performance like ROA or ROE. So you need to think about something new. So what I will advise you as a PhD student is to be open-minded. Ask yourself, why should I look at performance? You can look at anything else. You can look at CSR and cash holding, or CSR and credit rating, or trade credit. But if you still insist to look at CSR and the performance, think about a new measurement for performance. For example, you can think about economic value added or market value added. EVA and MEVA might be better proxy for performance than the traditional measures used in the literature. Look at the CSR. If you are looking at disclosure, are you measuring the quality of CSR or the quantity of CSR? Are you looking at the measurement of CSR reporting or the measurement of CSR practice? So you need to look at the methodologies used in the CSR and performance, try to criticize them, think about their limitations, and then you start from there. One of the best way, if you look at the most recent article in CSR and performance, read the article carefully and try to find in the conclusion the research limitations and any ideas for future research. So it might be the new idea you add to this literature is to find mediating variable or moderating variables which mediate or moderate the relationship between CSR and performance. So you should find a different angle. That's why we're not saying novel contribution. We always say incremental contribution. So you add to what has been done in the area before. I hope it's clear.
Okay, yeah. Okay, thank you, Prof.
Thank you.
Thank you, Francis. Dr. Khalid, I just noticed something actually. I didn't think about it before, but I just noticed. Alhamdulillah, after 3 days, ITAR will continue 1 year, delivering many of webinars, and you are the first one, the first presenter, and also the last one. So thank you so much, Dr. Khalid. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah. Ali, are you still with us, Ali? Ali, are you still with us? I can't see your mic is open, but we can't hear you. I think you have a problem in your mic. So don't worry, just write your question in the Q&A and I will read it to Dr. Khalid. Thank you so much. Dr. Khalid, also there is a question by Islam in the YouTube. They ask if we publish أو رسالة بالعربي، هل مقبول إعادة نشر بحوث المؤتمرات في دوريات علمية؟
نعم، مسموح بهذا الأمر لو كان المؤتمرات لم تنشر هذا البحث في مجلة علمية، وفي نفس الوقت المفروض إن هو بيقول هذا الكلام في الأكنولجمنت. يعني في الأكنولجمنت بيقول إن البحث ده تم عرضه ونشره مثلا في كتاب مؤتمر. النشر في المؤتمرات لا يعتبر نشر دولي، وبالتالي دور المؤتمرات هو فقط إعطاء فيدباك لتطوير البحث. فيفترض إن البحث اللي هيرسل للمجلة مش هيكون نفس البحث اللي هو عرض ونشر في المؤتمر، لازم يكون حصل عليه تطوير قبل إرساله للمجلة.
دكتور، الكونفرنس بروسيدنج ساعات في كتيب أو مجلة يسوونها في المؤتمرات كونفرنس بروسيدنج. It's not يعني a journal أو guest يعني لا، it's يعني conference proceeding. فهل هذا إذا نشر فيه هل ممكن ينشر in different journal؟
حسب فهمي نعم، بعض الببلشر بيقبل هذا الأمر.
Alright. ندى صليح إن شاء الله I will write the link إن شاء الله in the chat. Sure. Alright. Also we have Dr. Mohammed. Dr. Mohammed.
Good evening for all.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you, Dr. Ahmed and Dr. Khalid for this fruitful webinar. And I want to introduce myself as first. My name is Dr. Mohammed Faiz from Iraq. I'm a specialist in finance. And this really encouraged me to bring my questions over here because this session really impressive. Actually, I'm a new academician, and I want to ask Dr. Khalid 2 questions, actually. The first one, as a new academician, what should I do about what is your suggestion or advice for me in order to be a good reviewer in my specialty? It's my specialty actually. And the second question, actually, I want to know if there is any requirements for this mission, just like enhancing my CV or contacting some journals and offer my services as for volunteer reviewer. So please, Doctor, I'm really new and I don't know actually what is should be doing here actually. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Muhammad. First of all, as a new academic, I think first of all, to be a reviewer, you need to start publishing in good quality journals. So once you get your paper published, you can send to the editor of the journal you published in, ask him to consider your name as a potential reviewer. And at the same name, there is no problem at all to contact any editor to ask him to consider your name as a potential reviewer, even if you don't have enough experience at the current time. Because what the editor do, they send the paper to 3 reviewers. So 2 might be qualified and highly expert reviewers, and the third one might be a young researcher or early career researcher. So it's acceptable. So if you offer your service by sending a CV to the editor and your research interest should be clearly stated, say that I'm happy to volunteer to review papers in your journal if you are interested in. I think in this case, at least you will get some papers for reviewing in the very short term. Also, some journals, some publisher, if you search Google by call for reviewers, you will find some publisher and even some journals, especially the new international journals, ask for reviewers. So they will ask you to fill application form, write your expertise. You have PhD, so you are qualified for reviewing papers. And this, I think, once you review 1 or 2 papers and your CV shows that you are now active as a reviewer, if you target top-ranked journals, I think you will have a very good chance to be a reviewer for top-ranked journals. And then you can think about to be a guest editor in a special issue. This will increase your chance. And after that, you can think about to join editorial boards. So they will look at your expertise. So I think step by step, the step number 1, try to publish. If this takes time, try to contact journals, offer your service as a reviewer.
That's great. Please, Doctor, one more question, if that's available. I don't want to take a long time, but I want to ask you about some application for training for peer reviewing or referring, just like Pablo's Academy or Research Academy. Is this recommended from your side, or it's not? I mean, just helpful?
No, it's not recommended. So training as a reviewer is not recommended at all. Not available. If there is no training available for reviewers at all, and it's not required. So at least you should have a PhD, and I think you have it. So you can easily get the option or the chance to review papers based on your research interest in your PhD.
Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you.
Doctor, there is, thank you, Dr. Mohammed, thank you. Also, there is 2 questions. The first one, what is the editor decision if the 2 reviewers have different decision? Let's say the first one said major and the second one minor, or the first one minor and the second one rejection, let's say.
Okay. First of all, if the reviewers, one recommend rejection, one recommend major and one minor, it will be very safe to the reviewer to say the revision is major. So major or minor, it doesn't matter, the paper should be revised. So this will be an easy decision for the editor to say the paper requires revision and the revision is major. But if one say minor and the other say rejection, in this case, the editor can send the paper to a 3rd reviewer, or the reviewer can read, the editor can send the paper to a 3rd reviewer, or the editor can read the minor comments and the major or the rejection based comment and make a decision. So he might say that the paper should be rejected based on the reviewer who rejects the paper, because the minor one was very easy one and very minor. He has no expert. Sometimes he look at the profile of the reviewer himself or itself. So if the reviewer who rejects the paper is one of the top quality researcher in the field, he understands well compared with the one which recommend minor. But sometimes we receive a rejection decision from some reviewers. We believe that this decision is unfair. For example, one reviewer rejects a paper and just write one sentence. He mentions that I don't believe there is any relationship between CSR and the performance. Just one sentence. And the two other reviewers recommend minor comments. So in this case, and to be fair with the author, I recommended minor. So I don't trust the editor which just reject without a clear, scientific, detailed, constructive comments. So this is the option. He can send to the third reviewer, or he can make his own judgment. So which director? Sometimes the editor asks the associate editor his view. So he considers the opinion of the associate editor as a third opinion. So if the associate said reject, in this case, the paper will be rejected.
Thank you, Dr. Khalid. We have a question. أماني إسماعيل، هل ممكن المداخلة باللغة العربية طرح بعض الأسئلة؟ نعم ممكن أماني. Go ahead أماني. Amani, I believe you have a problem in your mic, so write your question in a Q&A, Amani. I will read it to Dr. Khalid. Okay? Thank you, Amani. Let's have some, some question in a Q&A, Professor. Bayumi asked, what is the exact reasons that I can say if wouldn't someone who didn't review my article?
Okay, what kind of reasons? If I have some problems with my PhD supervisor, and I know he's expert in the area, if I didn't write his name as an author because of these kind of problems with my supervisor, but he's expert, so the reviewer, the editor might send this paper to him as an expert, and he don't know he's my supervisor. So it's better to say that because of potential conflict of interest, please don't send my paper to professor. So write the name of the professor because he was my PhD supervisor and we have some conflict of interest. So this one example of the reason why I shouldn't send the paper to this reviewer.
Also, there is another question from Lamia from the Q&A. Thank you very much. It was very interesting and helpful. She has two questions. The first one, after sending a review report, should the reviewer contact the journal to have news about the article reviewers? And the second question, when a reviewer should decide to reject the paper review?
Okay, so first of all, normally most of the journal, when you submit your review and when the editor make a decision, they send a copy of this decision to the reviewers. If you haven't received this copy, please email the editor, ask him or her to send you a copy of the decision made, so to know what happened and also to know the comments raised by the other reviewer. The second point you ask about, when can you reject the paper? You can reject the paper if you believe that there is some major concerns in the paper, and if you believe that these concerns, based on the paper you read, the author will not be able to consider these concerns, or the concerns require more time to be considered. So might be concerns in the research methodology, concerns in the research idea itself, or you might believe that the research idea itself has been examined before, so there is no incremental contribution. These are some examples, yes.
Thank you, Professor. What does mean advisory board member from Kautar?
Yes, it's a group of people from the academia who are expert in the field related to the journal. So if it's accounting journals, they invite different professors or associate professors or even assistant professors to join the editorial board just to have their consultation if they need a reviewer or if they need to consult any specific issues related to the publication of the journals.
Also, Doctor, again from Kauthar, if you can tell us how you choose the reviewer.
Okay, choosing the reviewer, several points. First of all, I can ask the author to suggest some reviewers with reasons. And if these reasons are valid, I can accept them. Second way, I can look at the list of references at the end of the paper, and I can choose reviewers from this list. Thirdly, based on my own networking and connection, I know my colleagues, I know my students who are expert in the area, so I can invite them as reviewers. Also, I can open the floor just if you are interested to review paper, please consult me or contact me. So I make a call for reviewers. In this case, I can appoint new reviewer. Also, by looking at the authors of the published article in the paper itself or the previous reviewer in the journal.
Also, Doctor, if you when you send a paper to the journal, either if it's accepted minor or take the decision of minor, major, or also if it's rejection, it might be you will contact by the journal or the editor. Please review this paper. So
yes, yes. Once you submit any paper to any journal, your name will be included in the database of the journal and can be used as a reviewer as well. Yes.
أوفية وبعدها رنا البحراني. I hope you fixed your mic problem, Rana. Ophia, unmute your mic, please.
Hello.
Right. Hello.
Hello.
Hello, Dr. Katan and Professor Hussaini. Thank you so much for this interesting webinar and helpful training. My question is about the quantity study. If, for example, a variable consists two dimensions and each dimension is measured by several items, my question is that I have the right to delete an item if it's repetitive or not comprehensive after the responded remark in a practice questionnaire. If it's okay.
Can you repeat the question, please? Again.
If for example, a variable consists three dimensions and each dimension is measured by several items, my question is that I have the right to delete an item if it's repetitive or not comprehensive after the respondent remark in a pre-test questionnaire. If it's okay, what is the argument that I must use to justify this deletion?
I am really sorry. I can't understand the question well, maybe because of the connection. Can you write the question on the Q&A and I will try to answer if I can.
Okay.
Your voice is cutting. Your voice is cutting, so we can't hear you actually clearly. That's why I asked you to repeat your question.
Okay, don't tell me. Okay, I can just write the question in. I can just write the question in the queue. Okay.
Yes,
yes, yes, yes. I will read it.
Okay,
thank you. Mukhtar. Mukhtar Kubi. Mukhtar, unmute your mic, please, so we can hear you, Mukhtar. Abbas Hussein. can you unmute your mic, please? All right. Please, anyone have a question, you can raise your hand. So you can ask Dr. Khalid. Dr. Khalid, regarding the reviewers who take very long time to review the paper or reply back, either to you as an editor or also review the paper, is there a criteria or something that you, for example, you as an editor say to the editor, to the reviewer, you have 1 month to review it. Wait, and then as a reviewer, wait until one month, and then, for example, send them a reminder for a week. If he replied, that's fine. If the reviewer didn't reply, send him like thank you and whatever, and then change the reviewer. So the author won't waste, you know, their time and stay 6, some of them 1 year without anything, and maybe the data will be, you know,
yes,
late or, you know.
What actually I do, I send the paper to 3 reviewers, and I give them a deadline in the journal I'm responsible for is 1 month. And if at least 2 reply within the 1 month period, I make a decision. If the third didn't reply, I send him email that this is a deadline. If you don't reply to us by this deadline, unfortunately, I will make a decision based on 2 reviewers only rather than 1 review. If 2 reviewers didn't reply within a month, after reminding them several times, I can make a decision based on 1 review only. In the worst scenario, I can appoint a new reviewer and ask him to reply as soon as possible in order to avoid any delay in the reviewing process.
Thank you. معتز.
السلام عليكم. دكتور معتز العبيدي من جامعة الموصل. شكرا دكتور أحمد، شكرا دكتور خالد على هذه الجهود الطيبة. عندي سؤالين إن أمكن، وهذه واجهتها حقيقة. الأول، سؤال الأول بيتعلق أنه بعثت بحث، والبحث يفترض يعني حسب الداتا بيس مال المجلة أنه خلال شهرين البحث قد يعني يصير acceptance عليه أو rejected، لكن مضى 4 أو 5 أشهر الريفيور ما جاوب. هي اندر ريفيو طبعا تبين في موقع المجله، والحقيقه عملت ريمايندر للاديتور وجاوبني انه البحث راح يعني يكلم او يراجع الريفيور، وايضا مضى 2 شهرين ولحد الان. هل من المناسب ان اسحب البحث ولا ابقى؟ هذا حقيقه السؤال الاول. السؤال الثاني ايضا، أرسلت بحث لمجلة، هل من الممكن أنه الإديتور يقبل البحث بدون الرجوع إلى الريفيور أو يرسله إلى ريفيوينج؟ شكرا جزيلا. شكرا دكتور خالد. شكرا دكتور أحمد.
بارك الله فيك دكتور معتز، بارك الله فيك. طبعا بالنسبة للنقطة الأولى اللي هي حضرتك بعت بحث والبحث اتأخر من 4 ل5 شهور، نصيحة هنا مفيش داعي لسحب البحث، لأن لو سحبت البحث ممكن تقابل نفس المشكلة في مجلة أخرى، فالأفضل تنتظر قليلا لعل سبحان الله ربنا يكتب لك القبول في هذه المجلة وينتهي الأمر، منعا إنك تعيد الموضوع مرة أخرى في مجلة أخرى. طبعا في الفترة الحالية فترة الكوفيد 19 المجلات بتلتمس العذر للريفيورز إن في بعض الناس عندهم ظروف صحية، ظروف شخصية، فإحنا في حياة دلوقتي غير مستقرة، فالتأجيل ده متوقع في معظم المجلات وفعلا بيحدث في معظم المجلات لظروف الريفيورز. النقطة الثانية، هل الإديتور ممكن يوافق على البحث بدون إرساله للريفيور؟ الإجابة نعم، الإديتور ليه صلاحية كاملة بقبول البحث بدون إرساله للريفيور، بشرط يكون هذه الصلاحية مذكورة في العقد معه. يعني على سبيل المثال في قاعدة بيانات إيميرالد لا يجوز للإديتور إن هو ياخد ديسيشن بدون إرسال المقالة للتحكيم، هو واجب عليه إن هو يبعتها للتحكيم وياخد القرار بناء على تعليق المحكمين. ولكن في دور نشر أخرى كبيرة أيضا، تعطي الصلاحيه الكامله للإديتور ان هو يقبل البحث بدون ارساله لاي ريفيور.
شكرا جزيلا.
بارك الله فيك يا دكتور.
عندنا سؤال في اليوتيوب دكتورة أو منى الرشيدي. In case if the editor of the target journal had published a very close work to mine. في عنده paper بنفس الجورنال published in very close to her work. I wonder if is acceptable to send him my paper directly and ask him to be the reviewer of my paper.
Okay.
Of the paper, I think, not her paper.
طبعا the editor will not be a reviewer. The role of the editor is to make a decision, and the decision should be independent and not subjective. So what the editor will do, he will send the paper to reviewers, and based on their recommendation, he will make a decision to accept or reject the paper. So we don't send papers directly to the editors. You need to submit the paper to the journal and cite the work of the editor in your paper. The editor would like the idea, and if he strongly believes the idea provide incremental contribution to the literature, he will send the paper to 2 reviewers, and I think after he gets the reviewer comments, he will make a decision.
Thank you, Victor. Also, Wissam.
Hello.
Yes, hello.
Thanks for the great presentation. I would like to ask about what can I do if I send a paper to the journal and the reviewer sends me comments and questions which indicates that he's not an expert in my field of work, and that he is reviewing, especially when I look over his published work and specialization, and I found that he is out of my scope of work to be reviewed. Can I ask the editor to change the reviewer, or what is the best behavior in this situation?
But I think you will not know who are the reviewers. You will not know their name at all.
But when I receive a comment once upon sending a paper for my published work, I was contacted by the reviewer.
This is an ethical issue. The reviewer shouldn't contact the author at all. He should contact the editor directly. So if the reviewer contacts you, inform the editor in this case, and I'm sure the editor will replace him with a new reviewer.
Okay, thanks a lot, Doctor.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sam. Doctor, there is a question from Aya Abaza. هل there is a form for reviewing? هل there is a point, for example, to put an account for the reviewer to check it before,
Yeah. Most of the journals, if we talk about Emerald, for example, they have specific questions you need to answer, and then you are free to write whatever the report you have in mind. So the question is about the contribution. Is there any contribution? The answer shouldn't be yes or no. The answer should be detailed information. Yes, there is a contribution in this area. This paper provides XYZ as a new contribution to the field. Is the methodology sound? You need to say yes. But if you have any comments about the methodology, you need yes. For most of the journals, you will find like specific questions you need to answer, and then you are free to write a report if you wish, or if you don't have a report, just you can have 1 paragraph to conclude your main recommendation for the editor.
All right. Wissam?
وسام سألت من قبل.
ايه وسام. Okay, Doctor. There is a question from Gafal. Is the PhD holding, which is a doctor, or the PhD student, have the right to review a paper?
Yes, of course. I give this opportunity to some of my PhD students. They have the right, but you need to get trust from one of the editors, for example. So if you are a PhD student and you manage to publish at least 1 article, you show this editor that you have publication experience, you are at early stage of your research, so you can get the chance. So the answer is yes, if there is any evidence to the editor that you are able to publish. Also, if you submit any of your paper from your PhD, your name will be recorded in the database of this journal, and you are more likely to receive invitation to review an article. Also, as I mentioned, most of the editors send the paper to 3 reviewers. One of them could be early career researcher, like just completed his PhD or still doing his PhD.
Thank you, Doctor. There is a question from Mohammed Khattab. في حال كان البحث ذو فكرة جديدة, there is a contribution, ولكن يحتوي على أخطاء في القواعد, الجرامر, it needs a proofreading and this stuff. As a reviewer, what is the decision?
As a reviewer, I will accept the paper subject to minor correction. I will say that there is a contribution, the paper add value to the literature, happy to accept, but the author should proofread the paper because of the language. But there is a risk here. If the paper is poorly written, the language is not clear, the reviewer might be unable to understand your contribution from the poor writing. So what I suggest before submission, it might be better to send your paper to a native speaker or any company to check and correct English to get like a very positive comments directly from the journal. Because some editors might reject the paper directly if the paper is poorly written. So if you find some mistakes in the titles, abstract, all over the manuscript is not well written, it's rejected. Specifically, some people try to use Google Translate to translate the article from their own language, like Arabic in my language, to English. So Google Translate will not help, and the paper will be rejected by the editor and will not send to the reviewers.
Thank you. Doctor, يعني if the paper is not that well written, but it's understandable. I can't understand the...
If it's understandable, it will be accepted subject to minor correction, and the minor correction will be the proofreading.
Okay. بس انت قلت لي دكتور انه ممكن I can accept it واحط نوت انه يعني before it's published يعني check the grammar. يعني انا ماني عارف is it يعني اعطيها minor ولا اعطيها acceptance.
No, you will not give the direct acceptance. It will be minor correction. In some journals, you have the option accept with minor. So if you have this option, you can say accept with minor. But in other journal, accept or minor, in this case, would be minor correction.
Thank you. كيف هل ممكن نشر رسالة الماجستير؟
بالعربي صح؟ Yes.
كيف يمكن تحويل
نعم.
رسالة الماجستير؟
يمكنك تحويل رسالة الماجستير إلى بحث منشور. تحتاج الباحث أو الباحثة يحتاج الباحث أو الباحثة مراعاة الشروط الخاصة بالمجلة. ففي بعض التعليمات الخاصة بكيفية كتابة البحث نلتزم بها ونحول هذه الرسالة إلى بيبر من ناحية عدد الصفحات، من ناحية الشكل العام للرسالة، من ناحية كيفية الكتابة، كيفية كتابة المراجع. لو التزمنا بتعليمات المجلة ممكن نحول البحث إلى رسالة، نحول الرسالة إلى بحث منشور إن شاء الله.
Also دكتور أماني عليكم السلام. there is منو كان رنا أعتقد اللي كانت معانا ودكتور أعتقد رنا اسمها. I think I saw her name بال Q&A. رنا. Some journals give the right to researchers to choose their reviewers. Do you think the choice is done from the list offered by the journal themselves or by the researcher himself from the people he knows?
I think the author should recommend reviewers that are expert in the area. So I talk with the author, please look at the list of references, see which author you cited their work in your paper, and then suggest these into the reviewers, suggest them as reviewers.
Thank you. Farah has another question. Farah Bouach. Do international paid journals have a credibility just like the free journals?
Yes, international paid journals don't have this credibility, specifically if they have acceptance fees. So some journals you submit, pay the fees, you get the acceptance. This has no credibility at all. But some international journal have submission fees. You submit and you pay the fees regardless of the decision. The paper could be accepted or rejected. In this case, they have some credibility. So the best is to look at the journal ranking. So we have journal ranking. We have well-known journals in the area and in the field.
Yeah, so there is many, actually there is many very high ranked journals. They they need, or they ask for the submission fees, not acceptance fees.
Yes.
Ali Al-Sawar, nice day, Dr. Ahmed. We welcome your guest profile, Dr. Husseini. Thank for your reviewer. Sorry for your interview. Question 1: how well defined is a symbol for PhD thesis? How well defined is a sample for PhD thesis? Second one: you can adjust according to demographic or organization. Ali,
if I understand your question well, define your sample by explaining how and why you choose a specific sample for a specific period. So if you are, for example, in education field and you try to find out the reasons for poor level of education for female in specific country. So you need to explain why you are interested to look at female education, why you are interested in a specific country. So you need to explain in details. You need to justify in details your sample selection criteria. For the second question, I can't understand well what you mean. So I think generally speaking, you need to justify whatever the decision you have used in your sample selection or in the research method in general.
Thank you, Doctor. Mahmoud, I don't know if you ask a question or reply to other. So if you ask a question to Professor Khalid, please repeat your question, because I don't know, sometimes you repeat to other. There is a question from Aya Atiya. How can I take fund for publication open access?
Yes, if your university provide fund for open access, the university should be able to fund you. Also, if you have a research fund from any research organization, you can ask them in your budget to include publication in open access journals.
Thank you. Guys, if you have a question, you can raise your hand. That's okay. We'll take also, if you want to ask a question, you can raise your hand as well. Who is in Zoom? You can raise your hand. محمد خطاب. دكتور، كيف ممكن أصبح ريفيور في مجلة معينة؟ وين ممكن يسجل أو كيف ممكن يتواصل مع المجلة؟ محمد خطاب.
طيب دكتور محمد، أنا مش عارف تخصص حضرتك، ولكن أعتقد حضرتك دكتور محمد
قال انجينيرنج، قال
طيب بصورة عامة لو عملت سيرش في موقع جوجل، اكتب كده call for reviewers واكتب التخصص بتاعك، هتجد بعض المجلات بتعرض فرصة للباحثين ان هم يكونوا ريفيورز. اللي هيطلبوا من حضرتك يطلبوا منك السيرة الذاتية السي في، وهيطلبوا كمان الريسيرش انترست الاهتمامات البحثية الخاصة بك. ودي تبقى البداية في المجلات اللي هي الجديدة، وبعد ما تكتسب خبرة ممكن تبدأ تارجت المجلات الأفضل منها.
Also Marawi.
Good evening, Dr. Khalid and Dr. Ahmed.
Good evening.
Actually, I'm a student in master's degree in accounting And I have a question in general, not only in the peer reviews and auditors for papers. Recently, I have shared one paper, or my first paper in a conference, and actually it was very exciting. So, if you please, do you have like any advices or anything you could give us as a master's student to keep going in such a field? And thank you very much again.
Thank you very much. I think, first of all, if you present your paper in a conference and you believe it's a good paper, I should encourage you to think about publishing this paper in a journal, because publication in journals will give you credit if you think in the future to apply for a PhD scholarship. You will have a chance to get this paper published there. Also, publishing in journals is better than conference because, especially if it's international journal, many people will read your paper, will cite your paper. This will increase your reputation as a researcher in the future.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Marwan. Thank you so much. Sorry, Mahmoud, I just caught your question. Dr. Mahmoud asked you, Dr. Khalid, when a journal asks for section by section opinion for the reviewer, like contribution, methodology, introduction, and can the reviewer just say in each section, please see my details report?
Yes. Some reviewers write a detailed report, and rather than repeating the questions in their report in these questions, you can say just simply, please see my detailed report. Yes.
Also, Doctor, in the end of the review report, there is two sections: write a comment to the reviewer, and there is write a comment to the editor.
Yes.
Okay. So all my comments, of course, to the author, the editor just thank them, or that's it, yeah? Or there is something that I need to tell him,
yes,
like check the similarity, maybe
sometimes you might just to keep a good relation with the editor to mention to him, thank you for inviting me to review the paper. I'm happy to help to review any other paper in the future. Also, if you have some concerns, let's say you write your review and before submission, you found that the author published the paper elsewhere. So you can send to the editor saying that although after I finish my review, I found this paper is published in journal X, and you can send him the link to the journal. Or you can keep it empty if you don't have any comments or concerns.
All right, thank you. Amani, we already answered your question. رجاء من الدكتور عمل محاضرة في تطبيق الإحصاء في مجال المحاسبة. بإذن الله there is في تقريبا محاضرتين بشهر بعد شهر أعتقد لدكتور من جامعة الكويت بإذن الله راح يقدم محاضرتين عن الإحصاء إن شاء الله. كيف يمكن تحويل we answer your question. دكتور حسام حياك الله تفضل.
السلام عليكم.
عليكم السلام ورحمة الله
وبركاته. Dr. Khalid, how are you? You okay?
Alhamdulillah.
Dr. I graduated from Portsmouth University. I have the privilege to see you there. I'm with one of Jassim's friends, if you know him, Jassim Allahs.
Yes, of course, yes.
Yes. I joined lately to the course. I just want to thank you for the course. Just you know that I'm watching. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Hassan.
And I do agree about the reviewers of those things. But I have to raise one thing that most of the journals and sometimes universities ask you if you want to transfer from university to another. They ask you to provide like an email or confirmation that you've done a review. I think there's a website you can register there and you confirm your registration or your reviewers on that website. So I'm not sure what it's quite called. I think something starts with a P, but I'm not sure about it. If you correct me, yes.
Yes, thank you very much. If you can, Dr. Ahmed, share the website. I can share it in the chat room.
Yes. Doctor, just what you need to do in the chat, there's كلمة 2 بدال لا تحطها just 2 panels حطها 2 panels and attendees. So here they
عملت all panels list and okay.
Yeah. الحين انت حطيتها now okay.
تمام.
بابلون.
فلازم طبعا
Yes, thank you.
نعم لازم نسجل في هذا الويب سايت بحيث لما نعمل اي ريفيو بيسجل في هذا الويب سايت تحت اسم الباحث نفسه.
Also في شنو اسمه دكتور اللي هو رقم اسمه نسيت شنو اسمه اللي هو في رقم خاص حق الريسيرشر اي شيء مثلا they catch the name وينكتب تحت اسمه as
اسمه ايه نسيت.
عرفته؟
نعم
I think دكتور it's OICD something like that.
ايوه yes اركاد
yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, Arkad. Thank you so much, Dr. Hossam. Thank you. Also, Arkad, do the same, I think, Dr. Khalid, yeah?
Okay, I will write it here, inshallah. So
Sahar, she wrote it. Sahar.
كتب خلاص تمام.
Thank you, Sahar. Thank you, Dr. So, Sahar, have a question. Thank you so much for this nice webinar. I have one more question, please. If my paper is rejected and I found the editor consider the opinion of one review who is against the publication and neglect the other positive reviewers, should I reply and ask about the rejection or search of another journal?
Okay, Sahar. So if the paper is rejected by one reviewer and the second reviewer was positive, and the editor decide to reject, just simply send the paper to another journal. Don't waste your time by sending back to the editor because he make his decision based on the experience of the editors. So the rejection one might be by one of the leading researchers in the area. So you can't convince the editor to reconsider his decision. So it's better just to move forward and find another journal for your article.
Thank you so much, Professor. Thank you so much. There is a question from Tahir Tughari. Could you please answer to my question why some editors tell you to suggest 3 or 5 reviewers for your choice? Is that process normal from the editor or not?
Okay, just to speed up the review process, some editors find it difficult to identify reviewers. So they ask the author to suggest some names, and if you provide any valid reasons why you choose these names, the editor might choose these reviewers or 2 or 3 from these reviewers if they are unable to find potential reviewers. So this like kind of help to speed up the process of the reviewing process.
All right. Dr. Minat Allah, is it allowed to submit part of my master thesis in a journal and submit it the other in different journals in the same scope?
Yes, Minna, if you have 2 research ideas in your master dissertation, and if you can separate these 2 ideas and submit the 2 ideas of 2 different journals, that's fine. This is acceptable, but you don't need to repeat the information from the first paper to the second paper. So you need to be sure that there is no repetition between these 2 papers.
Thank you. Ali, is it possible to link international studies with the local studies in my country to cover the gap in the local studies?
Yes, of course. You can compare your country with one of the international country to try to find out the gap and how can you improve the situation in your country. And in this case, you need to justify why you choose your country as a context of your study and why you choose the other country as a context of the study.
There is a question from Sumaya. I want to ask if when I send my paper to the journal, the editor demands the database. I am a PhD in finance.
Okay, some editors ask for the database you have used in your analysis. Even sometimes they might ask, and they have the right to ask for the spreadsheet you have used in the analysis to be sure that what you have done is not fabricated data or fabricated research method. So if they ask for this database, you have to provide this information. I think it's very secure, so don't worry for sharing this, the database, or at least explain to them from where you collect this data in your empirical analysis.
Thank you, Doctor. Tahir Tughari, is there any possibility to submit two papers in the same journal for the same issue of volume?
Okay, Tahir, yes, it is possible to submit two papers for a journal, but you will not be guaranteed, or you will not be sure that the two papers will be accepted and will be in the same issue and the volume. But normally, if submitting two or more than two papers in the same journal is acceptable, if the two papers accepted at the same time, they might appear in the same issue of volume of the article.
There is a good question here on YouTube from أشواق يحيى. هل توصية الممتحنين بنشر رسالة الدكتوراه في دوريات عالمية وعلى شكل كتاب دليل على جودة الرسالة؟
تمام. أنا طبعا حثق في الممتحنين. لو الممتحنين من وجهة نظرهم أن الرسالة تستحق النشر في أعلى الدوريات العلمية، أثق في هذه التوصية وأقول إن شاء الله يكون فيها بوتنشال كبير إنها تنشر في مجلة دورية. نعم.
وإذا كان كتاب دكتور، الكتاب مثل ما أنت عارف ما في موست، يعني في كتب إذا كان يعني أو في كتب لا ما فيها ريفيو.
هذا أمر يرجع للباحث. لو الباحث حاب ينشرها كتاب ويحطه في المكتبة عنده، بس الأفضل يكون ريسيرش ارتكل بحيث تنشر على مستوى العالم ويستفاد منها الباحثين في مستوى العالم. لو كان كتاب، أول حاجة تكلفة شراء الكتاب هتكون كبيرة، هيبقى صعب على كل الباحثين يشتروه. لو اتحط في المكتبة هيكون في مكتبة في جامعة واحدة لوكال، ما أظنش هيكون ليه نفس نشر أو نفس الفرصة للانتشار زي المقالة العلمية.
Thank you. طاهر, is there any potential to submit هو سأل. اوكي. سحر, كيف احصل على شهادة المقوم العلمي في البوبلون، وهل يستطيع دكتور خالد مساعدتي في ذلك؟
سحر, محتاجة أول شيء تعملي ريجستريشن، تسجلي في هذا الموقع، ولو سجلتي في هذا الموقع وعملت ريفيو لأي ارتكل، الريفيو اوتوماتيكلي بيكون موجود في هذا الموقع، فسهل تحصلي على شهادة مباشرة. أيضا في طريقة أخرى للحصول على الشهادة عن طريق التواصل مع الإديتور. الإديتور يقدر يكتب لك شهادة يقول فيها إنك أنت عملت ريفيو لمقالة معينة.
There is a question from Aya. How can I know the rank of the journal?
على حسب مجال التخصص. لو عملت سيرش في موقع جوجل اكتبي ranking of the journal، لو كتبت مثلا business هيعطيك الرانك الخاص بالبيزنس اللي هو ABS أو ABDC. لو تخصصك تخصص علمي اكتبي ranking journals in medicine impact factor، هتلاقي المواقع اللي هي بتعطي التصنيفات المختلفة للمجالات العلمية.
لميا أبو عزيز ask how using Poplon for the reviewer.
حسب فهمي هذا الموقع مجرد ما الباحث بيعمل ريفيو لأي ارتكل، هذا الريفيو بيضاف تلقائيا لهذا الموقع. فمحتاج تكون ريفيور الأول، محتاج تكون مسجل في الموقع. لما بتعمل سبمشن للريفيو في اوبشن بتختار تقول أنا عايز أضيف هذا الريفيو إلى هذا الموقع.
You can raise your hand, guys, if you want to ask a question. You can raise your hand as well. Lemia, is it possible to use the same sample and methodology employed in my previous published paper in another paper to investigate another question research?
Yes, it is possible, but you need to cite the first published paper as if it is not your paper. So for example, I use the same sample and the same data I used in my first paper. My first paper was published in 2003. My second paper was in 2007 in the same area. So I used everything the same. So in the search methodology, I write that I use the methodology of Hosseini 2003. I use the sample of Hosseini 2003. So I refer to the first paper as one of the key references in my second paper.
غنى تسألك دكتور رنا البحريني, is there any standard sample of a reviewing form where the basic points need to be taken into account?
No, there is no specific format, but in my presentation, I mentioned to some of these points. And also if someone need like a sample of this review report, I can share it by email, so I can make it public.
Mukhtar, for example, I am a researcher in electric vehicle and renewable energy. When to consider myself ready to peer review? Okay, you consider yourself ready if you manage to publish at least one article in this area, or if you have completed your PhD in this area. In this case, you are a researcher, you have the license to do research, so please contact editors and offer your service to them. Marawi, what is your advice for first-time publication as a master's student?
Yeah, my advice, firstly, you need to attend any session to understand the publication process. Firstly. Secondly, you need to attend another session on writing paper, how to write a good paper. After that, you need to follow the instructions given by the journal, and then you can submit. So all these workshops available on YouTube. So if you search YouTube about international publication or how to write a good paper, I am sure that you will find many sessions there.
You will see in ITAR, if you go to ITAR channel, also there is many topics regarding the writing topics and other. Also, there is a question from Mu'taz, if there is a delay in reviewing for 4 to 5 months and the paper showed under reviewing, can we contact the editor about that? Is it good to draw the paper or wait?
Yes, I answered this question. It's always better to contact the editor to ask him for update. It is not better to withdraw after this long period of time waiting. So it's better just to wait a little bit more, because if you withdraw and try with another journal, this might take longer time.
All right. There is a question from Bushra. I published an article in French. 3 months later, I discovered that the abstract contained a spelling error typo. What can I do about that?
Okay, so if the article is published and available online, unfortunately, you will not be able to do anything. Just ignore. You are human, and all human make mistake. If the article is not available online yet, you can inform the publisher to correct this typo or this error.
Thank you. Mu'taz?
شكرا. أنا متأسف، يعني مشاكل النشر البحثي كبيرة جدا، يعني فمن الأشياء اللي واجهتني الآن وحاليا موجودة أنه أحد الريفيور اقترح 4 بحوث هي خاصة به إضافتها إلى البحث. بالحقيقة 3 منها ليست لها علاقة و1 له علاقة، فالحقيقة أنا أضفت الواحد وأهملت 3. هل في ذلك بأس؟
اوكي، شكرا دكتور معتز. لا، حضرتك تصرفت التصرف الصحيح. فاحنا بنعمل سايتيشن او توثيق للمقالات اللي هي مرتبطه بموضوع البحث فقط. ولكن هنصح حضرتك لو انت جالك مره ثانيه، يعني انت بعت البحث للمجله واتبعت للريفيور، ولو الريفيور اصر على اضافه البحوث الثلاثه الاخرى، انا نصيحه كده شخصيه، امرك لله علشان البحث ياخد اكسبتنس. حاول تجد اي علاقه ولو غير مباشره للثلاث مراجع الاخرين. يعني حتى انا احيانا بعمل ايه، لو انا كأوسر ممكن اضيفهم حتى في الفيوتشر ريسيرش. بقول في الفيوتشر ريسيرش الباحثين ممكن يبصوا للمقالات دي، فيهم انترستنج ايدياز، ممكن يعملوا تطوير لهذه الايدياز.
شكرا دكتور. شكرا دكتور.
Thank you, Doctor. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mu'taz. All right, Sahar. Sahar Abdulaziz, why some journals take very long time for revision, especially after submitting the revised version? If I am not the corresponding author, can I contact the editor to ask about this delay?
Okay, so journals take very long time because it is volunteer work. Reviewers are not receiving money from the journal, and they are busy, sometimes busy time, like teaching time is very busy time, exam time is very busy time. During summer, most of the reviewer might be on holiday. During this period, COVID-19 period, now again, we have personal circumstances might affect our ability to review the papers on time. So this one of the reasons people are busy in the academia, especially this is not paid work. If you are not the correspondence author, my advice to you, please don't contact the editor. The correspondence author should contact the editor on behalf on all other authors.
Thank you. Did he ask already? Khudr, some journals ask for declaration that there is no conflict of interest, and on the other hand, they ask you to choose your reviewers. Isn't it contradiction?
No contradiction at all. When you choose the reviewers, you need to be sure that there is no conflict of interest with these reviewers. So don't use reviewers from your families or from your friends or reviewers from your department or your business school. So try to choose the reviewer from the people you are citing in your paper. So try to avoid any potential conflict of interest. And at the same time, the editor has the right to use these reviewers or not.
Yeah. So actually, the editor, he can't catch that if the reviewer that you suggest from the same university, they will say directly he might know this author. Also, many journals nowadays, they said, why you choose this reviewer? So you need to write, for example, this reviewer is one of the key author in this area. He published several articles in the same area that I am, or my topic, for example. So they will not accept it directly. Mansoor Saleh, hi, Dr. Ahmed and Professor Khalid. Excuse me, can you please name some journals that accept to review dissertations and abstract by Twitter? Thank you very much.
So Mansoor, if you send me message on Twitter, I will send you, because I can't share this information on the public domain, because I think it's better to mention to these journals like this website or this publisher accept reviewing dissertation and abstract. Send me a message on Twitter, I can share with you the information.
Thank you, Mansoor. But I didn't catch the question, Doctor, if you can.
I think the question is about which publisher accept to get the dissertation or the PhD as a textbook.
Oh.
This my understanding is.
Tahir, could a supervisor send a cover letter or recommend a work from his PhD student. Note that the supervisor is a reviewer from high-ranking journal.
I don't know what the question means. If the supervisor is co-author with his PhD students, yes, when you submit the paper to any journal, you should have a cover letter. But if the student will publish himself, the student here asked about, can his supervisor write a recommendation letter to get this paper published? The answer is no. There is no recommendation in publication. So the publication is mainly based on the submitted article and based on the reviewer comments. So the recommendation here doesn't work at all. If your supervisor believes in your work, you can invite him to be one of the co-authors in this paper, so he can add his contribution, and then you can publish together in a good journal.
A question in the YouTube, Dr. A. Ashwaq, most welcome, Ashwaq. Dr. A, thank you for the interesting course. It is very helpful. I'd like to ask you, if you don't mind, do you recommend to use publication services such as paraphrasing, editing, proofreading? This is a question. The second question, I have found a mistake in a paper in a Q1 journal. Should I email the journal and inform them about these mistakes? Thank you.
Okay, first of all, if you can use the publication service like proofreading provided by the publisher, this will be great. I strongly encourage you to use the publication service by the publisher. If you found any mistake in a journal which is published, if you are the author, you can't do anything. The publisher will not correct this change because the paper is already published. But if it's something material, if something very significant, yes, you can do it. You can inform the editor, and then the editor can do correction for this paper and share this correction in the next volume of the journal.
Thank you. Let me see. I think that's it today. That's it for today, Doctor. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your time and effort, Professor Khalid. تضحك. ده أنا رحمك يا دكتور. ده ساعة ونص بس.
1 hour and a half for question. It's not.
طبعا دكتور خالد معروف ما شاء الله، يعني ياخذ الأسئلة بالساعات، يعني غالبا ساعتين ثلاثة. رمضان اللي فات ما شاء الله يمكن around 3 hours and a half or 4 hours just for questions. So إن شاء الله في ميزان حسناتك دكتور خالد. Thank you so much. If you have a last word, Dr. Khalid, before we.
Okay, just my last comment, because I am responsible for different academic journals. I welcome you if you wish, and if you are interested to be a reviewer, please send me your CV by email, so I can consider you as a reviewer in one of the journals. So the journals I'm responsible for covers the area of accounting, governance, finance, and economics. So if you are interested in accounting, finance, economics, governance, please feel free to send me your email, your CV by email, and inshallah, I will give you like an opportunity to be a reviewer in one of these top-ranked journals.
Thank you so much, Dr. Khalid, again. So Dr. Khalid announced that if you want to be a reviewer in the major of accounting, finance, and economics. So if you are engineering, another major rather than accounting, finance, or economy. So I don't think Dr. Khalid, he can help you on those. So just if you are in accounting, finance, and economy, send please an email to Dr. Khalid. He already posted his email in the chat. Also, you can write his name in Google. They will show it to you as well. Any last word, Dr. Khalid?
No, my last word, just to thank Dr. Ahmed very much for organizing this session. And also I would like to thank all the audience. They spent 2 hours and a half with us all the time. The reviewing process is not difficult. I'm sure that once you have done the first one, you will be able to do the rest. and also it will increase your knowledge and you will be able to publish many articles based on the expert you will get from the review process. Thank you.
شكرا دكتور, الله يعطيك ألف عافية. Thank you Dr. Khalid for the informative and very useful presentation and also for your time. For the next webinar, it will be on Friday, 2nd of April, with Dr. Fatima Al-Hashim from Gulf University in Kuwait, with the title The Hidden Curriculum and the Culture Influence in Social Science Research. So if you want to attend this webinar, please check ITAR account. I already put it in the chat, so please join those accounts and see this webinar. I already announced it, so you can register on those. For who's asking if this webinar recorded or no, yes, it's recorded in YouTube, and actually we are live in YouTube, so you can watch it wherever you want and whenever you want. Also tomorrow, inshallah, you will receive an email regarding just thank you for attending today, and inshallah I will try to put the YouTube link so you can watch it at any time. I received many emails regarding the certificate. ITAR webinars doesn't provide a certificate for attendance, so we didn't provide any attendance certificate. Thank you for understanding. Sure, who's asking for the YouTube link? I posted in the. I posted already in all social media, and also I just posted in the chat if you want to have a copy. Also tomorrow, inshallah, you will have an email from me with the YouTube link for this webinar. Thank you so much. I really want to thank everyone who attend in Zoom or in the YouTube for your patience and stay all this time with us. Also, I want to thank again Dr. Khalid for accepting my invitation and also staying all this time. Thank you so much, Dr. and ميزان حسناتك يا رب. شكرا دكتور, وإن شاء الله we'll see you next time. See you.
السلام عليكم.
السلام عليكم. التسجيل في المحاضرة القادم موجود في كل الأكاونت ITAR. It's already announced, so you can register from now. You can register to the next webinar now. There is a limited place for Zoom, so please, if you want to be one of those audience, please join now. Please join now. No, Sahar, we don't have Telegram channel. Those are all ITAR account. I will post it again in the chat. So we have in Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, ResearchGate, Academia, Facebook, and also our channel on YouTube. ما في شهادات حضور. شهادات حضور ما في. ما نعطي شهادات حضور في محاضرات ITAR. There is no certificate for attendance, guys. There is no certificate for attendance. Thank you so much. Have a good day. Appreciate your attendance. See you on Friday with another topic, with another guest speaker. Thank you. See you soon. Assalamu alaikum.